I'm going to begin my workshop. Good evening, everyone, to whoever's joining. My name is Yajna Aria Ahir, and I'm your specialist wellness counselor here at Naidoowellness. Today's workshop is titled Creative Minds and Wellbeing. Now, us being part of the creative industry, we do go through a lot of pressure of all sorts, whether it's financial pressures, whether it's family pressures, whether it's just personal pressure to meet a certain standard. And in essence, I'm here to share with you that's not necessarily the case. And we need to learn how to grant ourselves the grace. And how can we do that? You'll experience certain things in this workshop that would make you think in depth about certain things, as I mentioned, perhaps in your personal capacity or within your financial capacity or overall capacity. Okay. So what is a creative mind? Creativity goes beyond the art you do or the performance you do. It also includes emotional awareness, problem solving, making meaning in the craft that you're carrying out, your imagination and reflection. So we can agree that these aspects that I shared with you, emotional awareness, problem solving, meaning making, imagination and reflection, is something that can depict within the artwork that you create or that dialogue you create or that short film or content that you create online. So your work goes deeper than what the surface is. So here's a bit of an icebreaker. So your prompt is, if my mind was just a creative space, what would it look like? Or it would look like. And then the examples I provided, it could be a crowded room, it could be a messy desk, it could be a calm ocean, an unfinished canvas. So if my mind was a creative space, it would look like. And then this is your opportunity to think about what your emotional capacity is right now. What does your mind look like right now that could be painted, for example, on a blank canvas or on a blank piece of paper? What would your mind look like? What would your emotional capacity look like? If my mind was a creative space today, it would look like. I'll give you a couple minutes to reflect on that. So moving on to the creative brain. What is the creative brain? So basically, the creative engagement activates, so your creative engagement being your craft, whether it's painting, whether it's music, whether it's content creation, whether it's script writing, short film making, whatever your craft is, your creative engagement activates the prefrontal cortex of the brain. This helps regulate the amygdala. Your amygdala is basically, in essence, responsible for your emotional regulation. It can also be a stress response. So it helps regulate more of like the negative effects that you could feel, such as your stress. This also encourages grounding and emotional balance. So another prompt that I'm going to present to you is, how do you ground yourself and reduce your stress? So how do you ground yourself and reduce your stress? What does it mean to ground yourself? So in essence, how do you pull yourself towards yourself to just calm down? And that sometimes can look like our creativity, whether it's you writing a piece of writing, whether it's you filming something, whether it's you editing something. Maybe that brings you a sense of calmness. Maybe that brings you a sense of a stress relief. So in that, using those examples, how do you ground yourself and reduce your stress? Okay, so another reflective exercise that we can carry out. You're going to ask yourself, what is living in my head? So how do we navigate this question a bit more? So a prompt that I provided, well, I provided two prompts. My mind has been holding dot, dot, dot. Another prompt, right now I feel dot, dot, dot. So you are allowed to explain, write, or draw what is happening inside of your head right now. And why is it being depicted like that? And I'll give you an example just for an understanding's sake. For example, you can say, right now I feel confused. So what would confusion look like on a piece of paper for you? Whether it's a piece of art that you're going to quickly draw up, what would confusion look like in a piece of writing? What would it look like in a piece of maybe a short sonnet of a poetry? And with that being said, once you label it in the best way you can, answer or ask yourself, why is this certain feeling being depicted the way it is being depicted? Okay, moving on. Creativity and identity. So, creativity helps individuals explore their identity safely. What does that mean? When you explore your identity safely, it means this is your space, your time, and just your safe spot to do what you need to do, how you want to do it, wherever you want to do it, whether it's on your cell phone, whether it's on a piece of paper, whether it's on your laptop writing something, drawing something, or even painting something. That's your space to just be who you need to be and be what you want to be, and have no judgment placed on you for that. Creativity helps individuals integrate lived experiences. Sometimes, as creatives, we find it difficult to just talk about our lived experiences. Perhaps even when we talk about it, maybe we're not fully expressing it the way we need to express it. And somehow, maybe it's something we still hang on to. So we could also utilize, well, we find creativity much more easier to utilize to express our emotions fully, to express our lived experiences fully. Also in the sense of it's a non-judgmental space and it's just your personal space. Creativity helps individuals strengthen self-understanding. What does that mean? When you depict your piece of art on a piece of paper or canvas, or your writing or your edits of some sort, you get to visually see what's been going on inside your mind, what's been going on with your emotions. Or maybe when you, as I mentioned earlier, when you depict your lived experiences, you kind of understand that circumstance fuller and more in depth. And when you do that, you also reflect on your personal experiences, which then leads to you having a much bigger self-understanding of how you carried yourself out, why you carried yourself out that way, and perhaps maybe figuring out how you're going to improve going forward. You identify what's your strong traits and traits that you find that you can improve on. The creative self. So this is a quick guided reflection that we can all do together. Simple questions, but these simple questions can go rather in depth for some. So, when do I feel most like myself? What creative acts ground me? What part of me wants expression? You are allowed to draw or write your answers. Writing can come in many forms. It can be a quick answer, point by point. You can even write it in a poetry form or just a piece of writing. Even with the drawing, if you have colors right next to you, you are more than welcome to use colors. You're allowed to just use your black and white pen or just a pencil. So when do I feel most like myself? Does that look like you going to the ocean to connect? Does that look like you having alone time in your bedroom? Does that look like you maybe listening to a certain artist and their music? What creative acts ground me? So what is your craft that actually makes you feel so calm, cool, and collected? Is it a piece of writing? Is it you drawing something? Is it you sketching something? Is it you painting something? Is it you actually maybe sculpting or building something that brings the act of you grounding yourself? And the last question, what part of me wants expression? In other words, what is a potential void within myself that I want to express, but perhaps I can't find the words to do it? Perhaps I can't formulate a creative piece of any form, so any form being drawing, poetry, creating a sculpture. And I just don't know how to create it that would actually complement the void that's within me. So what part of me actually what part of me wants expression, but I'm just finding difficulty to do so. Okay, moving on. So being a creative, especially here in South Africa, where it is a very underfunded niche in our market, with so much of talent that we have to offer, unfortunately, we are not funded accordingly and we're not rewarded accordingly. And with that, we do deal with a lot of financial pressures. So dealing with financial pressures as a creative, just a friendly reminder and something that we need to carry with us as creatives. Being a creative doesn't mean you're careless with your money. And I'll say that again. Being a creative doesn't mean you're careless with your money. Financial pressure is common when your income fluctuates, and that stress can block your creativity as well. So gentle reminders. Your talent is not equal to your income, especially early on in your journey. Inconsistent income doesn't mean instability as a person. Structure brings safety, even for creatives, which is quite funny to say because you can't really put structure to creativity, right? But structure brings safety, even for us creatives. Small financial awareness reduces big anxiety. Reframe, money clarity equals creative freedom. I am now going to present to you the 3-bucket money check. So this is in essence a quick exercise that you can do on a month-to-month basis or however often that you want to do it as a reflection on your financial well-being and just your financial circumstances. So the idea is that we have 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 being our needs, bucket number 2 being our wants, and bucket number 3 being our creative income. So under these 3 headings, for example, bucket number 1, that's going to be our needs. You're going to write down 3 things that you have to pay for monthly. So things that you can't really live without. So your food, your data, your transport, perhaps that even looks like electricity. So you're going to list all of your needs, and next to those needs, you're going to put a price to it, however much you're going to be paying for that. Okay. Bucket number 2 is your wants. So under that bucket, you're going to write 2 non-essential things you spend on. So what is non-essential things? It's more of like a want that we don't really need. So that can look like perhaps buying that McDonald's maybe 3 times a week. We could reduce it down to maybe once a week. So what are the non-essential things you spend on? Your takeaways. Another example could be subscriptions. Maybe there's subscriptions that you have that you don't even use anymore. So how can we reduce those things? How can we reduce our wants and just focus more on the needs? How can we put more money into bucket number 1? Because when we fill bucket number 1 first, and we use that as a priority, it becomes a bit more easier to navigate bucket number 3. Bucket number 3 being your creative income. So under this bucket, you're going to write 1 way you currently make money from your creativity. Or even if you're not making money as yet using your creative outlet, you can even just write 1 way you would like to start making money with your craft. So again, that can be anything that you find so effective for you in your day-to-day life that you just carry out so well and you find absolute joy. So that could be perhaps selling your paintings. That could be perhaps content creation online. That could be you creating more scripts for movies, for short films. What is one way you currently make money from your creativity? If not, one way you would like to start making money. When we start filling bucket number one the most, and we start taking care of ourselves in that aspect, it gets a bit easier to navigate bucket number three. A much more clearer road can be created from yourself to see, okay, what is my step one, step two, step three in order to start making money using my creativity or to make more money from what I'm doing right now. A reflection question: what is one small money habit I can improve on this month? And I'll repeat that. What is one small money habit I can improve on this month? So, for example, it could be you buying less takeout. It could be you buying more organic foods that could work out much cheaper than keeping on buying takeout all the time. It could be you canceling subscriptions you don't use anymore. It could be you just being more wise with your needs versus your wants and spending more on your needs than your wants. I'm not saying completely get rid of your wants, because we can't do that. We need to reduce our wants to fulfill our needs so we can then navigate our creative income more effectively. Okay, creativity, burnout, and emotional fatigue. Us creatives are very vulnerable to over-identification with productivity, our perfectionism, and emotional exhaustion. So what is over-identification with productivity? We kind of link our identity to the output we have with our craft. So for example, I need to paint 10 paintings within 1 week just to show that, you know what, I'm actually doing something with my life. Perfectionism, we can't have any flaws in our creativity. We can't have any mistakes. Emotional exhaustion is the over-identification with the productivity plus perfectionism would then equal to your emotional exhaustion. When we reach the point of emotional exhaustion, it will be more difficult to be creative and have a good output of our creativity. So with that being said, as much as we push and push and push, and we, as I said, we kind of identify ourselves with how much we put out in terms of our creativity, sometimes we need to reframe creativity as care. Creativity does not always need an outcome. So sometimes your creativity can just be playful. It can be something private to you. It can be something restorative. Restorative being, what do I need to do to fill up my own cup so I can get to the level that I need to be working on? Another reflection exercise, creative boundaries. You are going to journal on the following. Well, we are going to be journaling on the following. I give myself permission to create without ... I need to protect my creativity from ... A gentle creative practice I can commit to is ... And I'll just give examples so we have a bit of a guideline on how to answer these questions, just in case you are unsure. So an example for the first one, I give myself permission to create without, for example, judgment, pressure, deadlines. Because when we create without those things, it just gives us more freedom as a creative to let things flow. Going on to the second one, I need to protect my creativity from... what does that look like for you? Another example that I can give here, I need to protect my creativity from... it can be you using a piece of art that you keep private for yourself to not feel the pressure to put all of your work out. Some of the work you can keep to yourself. And some work you're allowed to put boundaries on and say, okay, I'm going to post this one out or show the world this piece of art that I've created. A gentle creative practice I can commit to is... that can look like you listening to music. That can look like you playing an instrument. That can look like you perhaps going on a walk outside and writing something. So, integrating creativity into daily life. So, how can we start integrating creativity or our creativity into what we do in our day to day life? So, that can look like 5-minute creative check ins, journaling or expressive writing, music, movement, doodling, voice notes, or reflective prompts. What does 5-minute creative check ins look like? I'll give an example with this one. It can be you asking yourself simple questions. How was my day? How did I feel today? Why did I feel like that today? And you answer those questions as honest as you can and as open as you can. And that can be in the form of you journaling or you writing something or even doodling something. Or even if you're a dancer, you can even express those emotions through your movement. A closing reflection. What is one word you would use to describe how you are feeling now? What is one insight you have gained from this workshop? And to end things off, I'm going to leave you with this. Creativity is not a luxury. It is a psychological resource. And with that being said, thank you so much for attending this workshop. And I truly do hope it's something that you enjoy.